So you've spent basically your entire career challenging the conventional views on aging and kind of empowering older adults to live healthier, better lives. What inspired you to pursue that mission, and how has your perception on aging changed over the years since you've kind of started that organization here?
Great question. It really started where I started at the age of 21. I was going to be a professional soccer player. Came back from a vacation, had put on some weight and had to get it off. So I joined a club, got rid of the pounds, and got offered a job. $3.50 an hour back then. It was big money. And for 10 years, I ran health clubs, and I kept making young people's biceps bigger. And that just kind of felt a little bit empty. So I went to Mexico, came back, launched my first company. And to make a long story short, one of my advertisers, when I sold the company, asked me to come and work for them, and that was Kaiser Fitness Equipment. And Kaiser, at that stage, was involved in a lot of the research that was happening on the older population in regards to strength training and aging. And due to that research, there was this incredible outcome that showed you didn't have to be young to be able to get stronger. You didn't have to be young to regain muscle mass, and that you could actually perform and enjoy life much greater than what was expected simply by being healthier and fitter. No great surprise now, but back then that was huge news all over the media. And the problem was that I would come into communities like this, and they would run you out basically thinking that the exercise would kill the residents instead. So there was a gap in education, a gap in knowledge, and no one filled it. So over time, this gap kept getting bigger and bigger, and I just saw the opportunity. And my 111-year-old grandmother, who just passed away a few months ago, was my inspiration throughout my life. So the two of those kind of came together, and I said, well, at 40, I'll leave my job and start something new. And the goal was to change perceptions of aging, because back then, all of the information that was coming out around aging was pretty well negative. The reports, the media, all of that. So we launched the ICAA to change the way we age.
Let's start with Grandma, because that's an incredible feat, 111. You said she was kind of your inspiration. Was she kind of doing the whole, not the norm of what typically people think of aging? Like, was she a very healthy, active individual?
She was very healthy until the age of 99 when she had a stroke in her eye. But even after that, her key to aging was a few simple things. And that was, one, she'd wake up every morning with a couple water jugs, and she'd do her exercise. Two is she'd go to the pub with the younger people all the time. Three is she was a rabid hockey fan for the Vancouver Canucks, and she would go down into the scrums with all these young guys trying to get a stick, and she would walk out with a stick. She would be swearing at them, all of this. So she lived life out loud, as they say. What I learned from her was curiosity. Always be curious about things, how they work, who's doing it, what they're doing, is it real, is it not? And that was probably the greatest gift that she gave me over time.
Wow. So kind of brings me to the question here. So the perception on aging, basically, it leads to decline. Clearly, that's not the case with your grandma. How do you encourage individuals and communities to move away from that kind of mindset and just kind of embrace aging as time and growth, as opposed to, decline and deterioration?
That's a really deep-filled question that has a couple different answers to it. One is knowledge. Our knowledge today compared to what it was 30 years ago is very different. We know that we can. We know we can hit train. We know that we can do adventure travel. We know that older adults are participating in national senior games. Our capacity to enjoy life is much greater than we thought. Not so much enjoy life, to function at a higher level is much greater than we thought 30 years ago when the initial research that I mentioned came out, and it was all about just simply being able to regain your strength. Today, it's about being able to enjoy your life to the fullest. As I mentioned, knowledge, number one, understanding that it is that, because that never used to be the perception. And if you were trying to convince people in their 80s and 90s who have had a lifetime that, no, I'm not capable of doing that, it's like a table, a solid table, until you hit out one leg where things begin to wobble and people are open to the message. So I think one is knowledge, two is inspiration. Role models, showing people that are doing it, that are similar to other people. I wouldn't show celebrities because, their financial situation and what they have access to may be very different. But I think the most important thing is understanding that we can, and then embracing that, embracing who we are, our identity, our capacity, and the ability to enjoy life. Until we do that, it's pretty hard.
Well, you mentioned financial, so that brings up my next question. How do you see the financial resources and equal access to opportunities affecting one's ability to age actively? And then basically what steps can be taken to ensure that older adults, regardless of their socioeconomic background, have the chance to live healthy and fulfilling lives?
I get asked that question a lot, especially when it comes to wellness. Yeah. People say, well, wellness is a rich person's offering. And I completely disagree. And the reason is that wellness is not just about the amenities that you have access to. You can achieve wellness without a dime. You can be socially connected to create your relationships without money. Just simply walking around and saying hello to people all over the place may introduce you. It may also get you some weird looks. But remaining connected with individuals. Walking out in the neighborhood, it begins to get you physical activity. You can pick up, as I mentioned with my grandmother, milk jugs and do strength training. So spirituality. You can meditate and connect with yourself. So a lot of times people put financial restraints on, well, I can't get healthy because I don't have the money to do that. That's not so. Now, does it give you greater joy if you have access to an amenity like a spa or a fitness center and that it's beautiful and you can walk into it and you enjoy yourself? Absolutely. But it doesn't mean that you can't remain healthy and fit. The key is all up here in the brain. If we see ourselves aging well, and that's the identity that we seek, then we can strive for that. If our identity is someone that isn't aging well, then we strive for that as well. And unfortunately, that can take up to 7.6 years off of your life.
So a lot of it is between the ears, essentially.
It's all between the ears.
I guess, so how much does diet and exercise play into part of that? I mean, obviously it's a big part of it, but it's basically there's the perception of if you're healthy, there's a certain way you should look. Technically not always true. Could you kind of talk about that? Like basically if you're eating healthy, you're supposed to look fit in that, but that doesn't always be true. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of malnourished people out there who look healthy. but aren't eating the right foods. And then there's a lot of people out there that maybe don't look as fit or as healthy that are eating the right foods. And there may be a variety of factors, whether it's, genes, medications, all these different things that may add to it. At the heart of wellness is nutrition and exercise. Simply you need nutrition to function, and you need to be able to function to then eat. So the two go hand in hand. And to me, that after purpose, that is the foundation for wellness for many people. Because by eating well and also by having physical activity so that you are able to enjoy the things you want to do, such as travel. If you have ever traveled to Europe, there's a lot of steps. Everywhere you go, a lot of stairs. So, you have to have a certain level of fitness to be able to truly experience Europe the way it's meant to be experienced. If you want to play with your grandkids, there's a certain level of fitness that is needed. Nowadays, it's less about fitness. It's more about function. It's the ability to function and do the things you want to do when you want to do it and with who you want to do it. As you get older, few people actually think about having a six-pack, right? Unless it's bought at the store. Otherwise than that, most people are just going, how do I enjoy life? And it's really basic. Move and watch what you eat.
So how important is the mental health in the aging process, and what can be done to better address kind of like emotional and psychological needs of those who are lonely, maybe someone who's passed away who might not have the chance to get out as much into the community or to be able to take those kind of trips that you kind of mentioned?
Man, social connections are key in my mind to emotional health. If you think about it, before the pandemic, the second leading cause of premature death and disability was depression. I'm sure that it is now the first. And when you get isolated and maybe you get depressed, and because you get depressed, maybe you eat more. Because you eat more, you get heavier. Because you get heavier, you get more depressed. And it's this spiral downwards. And it all starts with being isolated or being socially not connected the way you want to be. That's why interdependence is as important, if not more important, than interconnection. Interconnection is I'm connecting with people like I am with you right now. We're being socially engaged. But interdependence, where I rely on someone and someone relies on me, also brings meaning and also enables us to have a backup plan, somebody that's there, always there to support us, and we're there to support them. Those kind of relationships, I think, are deeper and erode the symptoms that come with social isolation and loneliness, because you can be lonely in a group. You just don't feel like you fit. Everybody's having a good time. Think about the people who used to go to dances and they would stand in a corner and they'd never dance. They probably felt pretty lonely and out of place. So it's a huge issue, and it's one that an individual and an organization can address simply by building connections.
Which kind of leads me to the next question. Here at Passant, we have the Aspire program. How important is a program like the Aspire Wellness Program in basically helping older adults kind of feel engaged and fit in? And then on top of that, you have, all of the activities that kind of comes along with Aspire. How important are programs like that to not only here at Passant community, but across the nation?
I think if you have a community today and you don't have a program like this, you are quickly becoming less relevant to people, because now the cat is out of the bag. Now we know we can live better longer. Why wouldn't you want to do that? And if you moved into a community, wouldn't you want a community that can help support that vision? I mean, I don't think any of us don't want to live better longer, and wellness is the way to achieving that. So I think it's crucial, so much so that 71% of our 10,000 senior living communities expect to move from a care-based model with wellness to a wellness-based model with care by 2030. It's being driven by consumer demand.
So it's kind of flip-flopped in how it's perceived.
The words are flipping, but when the words flip, so does the model. So everything goes back to zero. Now, how we market, how we program, how we build, how we deliver services, policies, everything changes.
So are there any innovations or trends that, these kind of programs should be looking into, or what are you seeing out there that really plays a part in something like that helps evolve these things?
I think there's a wide variety of things. Of course, front and center that everyone's talking about is technology. How can you use technology to enhance what you do and not replace what you do? Such as a simple thing like VR. People can experience travel for those that aren't able to get out through putting on a VR headset. They can experience sensory experiences such as going for a trip in the moon or what have you, right? Maybe it's a flashback to when they were at Woodstock. So technology, wearables are becoming front and center for not only the healthcare model, but the wellness model. We're becoming more and more responsible for our own health and well-being. So you see things like all these apps. What are these apps? These apps are self-care. All these different apps out there. It's you are driving the use of them. So like when ATMs first came out and people felt a little uncomfortable, but they started using them and now they're commonplace. All of this towards self-care is going to become more and more commonplace because you see all of this technology that people have in their homes that you can go into my mom's bathroom and it looks like what a doctor's office used to look like. Blood pressure, glucose checks, all of this stuff. The other thing that I think we need to look at is all these longevity clubs that are now opening up. And at the heart of these longevity clubs are very comprehensive assessment tools. And the reason for that is to deliver highly personalized and precise recommendations for people to follow, because no two people age the exact same way or at the exact same time. So having a person-centered approach is really the future. Now, these longevity centers are like the big computers years ago. We look at that and go, man, that's a huge facility that has all of this. I'm not going to bring all of that into this community. Well, look at the elements. They have, as an example, a fitness center. They have a longevity center. They have an anti-aging center. They have a lifelong learning. They have medical wellness. They have wellness center. They have all of these things all combined, a spa, all of these things all combined into one. So is that a trend that will make its way sooner or later into senior living communities? I think so. If you look at the blue zones that is opening up in Miami, their assessment area looks almost like the deck of Star Trek. So the future, I think, is all about the individual focusing on their health and well-being and being responsible, and also an organization supporting that through the different technologies and services that are available. You would think that would have been a natural growth pattern, but a lot of times, like most organizations, we tend to focus on the masses and not the individual.
For that individual, you say technology. Obviously, technology to older adults can be a daunting thing. I know my mother, when she first got an iPhone, was, what do I do with this thing? And then there's the whole apps. So you started layering technology and apps. How do you help or encourage somebody kind of get over that hump and help them embrace this newer technology?
Knowledge.
Goes back to knowledge.
Lack of knowledge. There was research from Georgia State when the ATMs first came out, and it said that older adults weren't using ATMs, so they wanted to find out why. No one showed them how. You show someone how to use it, and they can become proficient in it. If you don't show someone how to use it, it becomes very intimidating. So everything comes back to understanding and knowledge.
You mentioned before, basically, the image and perception of, you try not to use celebrities, but however, there is the social media and the overall media landscape that helps shape the way older adults are perceived in ads. I think of Sports Illustrated. They are now kind of showing a whole different vibe. I think Martha Stewart was on there recently. Yep. How much does that help or hurt the way older adults think and kind of the image that they should be trying to, look towards?
If it happens once, no big deal. But when you begin to see Elon Musk's mother the year before Martha Stewart, then you begin to see all of these covers on publications that are generally for the young, like GQ and Vogue and so forth, that are having a lot of older people, and not just models, normal looking older people on the covers. There's a movement that is happening. AARP just came out with research that showed that there was a lot more positivity and a lot more imagery of older adults now being used in advertising. And the big problem? It's still a small amount. We need to have that expand and grow. To me, that's where the opportunity is. Because if your competitors aren't keeping up with that and you are seen as relevant to the person who is viewing it. For years and years and years, I've written numerous articles on marketing to the older adults, and the marketers always get a failing grade. Dismal, actually. But it's improving little by little. So we're getting there, and we're getting there because we're living better and we're living longer, and the marketers are understanding I can't ignore this market anymore. Now the question is, how is it represented? And that all comes down to the individual marketer. But generally speaking, the advertising and marketing industry has typically got a big failing grade, an E if you were going to school. Today, it may be a D.
Are there any policies or initiatives that are crucial to this, that companies or whatever it might be should be kind of adopting or embracing? Is there anything specific to that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think inclusion. First off, you see more and more communities really including generations as opposed to excluding generations. And I mean, actually people moving in, becoming more multi-generational. Del Webb, that builds 55 plus communities, that is highly focused on the active, younger, older adult, is now beginning to deliver communities where older adults and younger people are living together. So I think that policies to break down barriers, have inclusion and acceptance, as well as also to respect people's identities, is at the heart of all of this. It's easy to say, it's hard to do, especially if you have a community that is in one area that is, let's say, all Caucasian. How does it become more inclusive? So I think, acceptance, inclusion is at the heart of the policies. And then the policies being such that people can do as opposed to being told what they can't do.
So you bring up a good point, and that's the different communities that have different races, ethnicities, whatever that may be. How do the approaches to aging differ across certain cultures, essentially. Obviously there's the lifestyle, the each culture is going to have a different way of thinking and acting, so to speak, towards aging. What do you see out there?
I think every culture has a different outlook. As an example, the African American culture, a lot of their, a lot of it is around community, a lot of it is around, the religion, and so forth. So I think the easiest thing to do is to figure out what is the experience you want to deliver, who's your customer, and then drive that. Now, I'll give you a simple example. There was research not that long ago that showed that African American women, when it came to exercise, one of the reasons why they weren't exercising was they didn't want to get their hair wet. Now, that sounds simple, but it's because of the challenge of drying it and redoing everything. But that's not me saying that. That's the research. That's people basically saying, I didn't choose to exercise because, of the impact it has on my
culture
here. And it's part of the culture. If you are dealing with people from the Muslim country where now the women aren't able to be around men, as an example, that's why in many of those countries you will have women's only clubs or women's only fitness centers. So if you have people who are moving in who are of that faith or culture, having something segregated is going to become crucial because that's part of their religion. So understanding, it goes back to marketing 101, understanding who your customer is, what their expectations are, and then fulfilling those.
No, what has been your experience with meeting the individuals here at Passivant? I know, obviously, a lot of them are probably part of the Aspire program. What has been your takeaway from those individuals you've met and kind of what you've seen on campus thus far?
Life. The people I've met are filled with living. That's been my impression so far. And that's probably a testament to the Aspire program. It's not always that way. I'm sure I have not met some people who are not viewing things that way because the diversity of residents. But the residents that I've met so far are filled with life. They seem that they are joyful, and they're also highly appreciative of the program that is available to them to help them live better.
Would you say meeting these people and kind of seeing their spunk for life, so to speak, does that inspire you to keep pushing with this dream that you have going right now? Is that kind of what keeps pushing you to keep doing this?
Yeah, it's always great to see when somebody's able to get the most joy out of life. In my mind, of course, this is my faith, we have one life, and you have two choices. Do I get the most out of my life no matter what my circumstances, or do I not? And to me, seeing these individuals, if we just finished the Olympics, so going for it is always inspiring because, I've seen both sides of the fence. And the side of the fence that my dad spent the last 10 years of his life on the not so good side of the fence, where he was extremely inactive, his health eroded. At the very end, he was a pincushion for the hospital. They were doing so many tests, and his quality of life was abysmal. Most people would prefer to end their life a little bit earlier, not themselves, but to have fewer years, but more years filled with life than to spend that time.
Yourself, how do you personally apply a lot of these things in your own life to kind of what you're out there teaching? Because obviously, if you're saying something, you kind of want to continue and do it. Yeah. You have to believe it yourself. How do you kind of live your own aging life, so to speak? I play a lot of pickleball, and I love pickleball. Anybody wants to challenge me, I'm happy to take them up on it. And riding.
pickleball and riding, for me, it used to all be about weights and weightlifting when I was younger. That's still important, by the way, because between the ages of 35 and 70, you lose 50% of your strength, 75% of your power, which is one of the main reasons so many people fall. Power is your reaction time. So things like pickleball, as an example, you are quick response. It's power movement. You're lunging a lot. You're also doing a lot of squats with pickleball if you're playing well. If you're still standing just upright, well, you're enjoying the game. But to me, I also travel a lot. And I don't know if you saw the latest research about a week and a half ago that shows that people who travel a lot also age well. Why? Because they're expanding their experiences, they're expanding their knowledge, they're remaining engaged in the world. So I encourage anyone to add travel. And if you're traveling, you're also probably more physically active because you're climbing the stairs, you're hiking, or whatever you're capable of, which I just came back from Italy, and we were doing hikes up the mountains in Puglia. Not huge mountains, but about an hour hike, which was pretty good. So those are the things that I do now. They're not the things I did when I was younger. When I was younger, it was all about playing soccer, rugby, anything that you could hit someone, I enjoyed. So football, all those kinds of things that end up taking their toll on you as you get older. That's why I was mentioning about Sidney Crosby and his concussions as he gets older. And the World Health Organization changed the definition of healthy aging from the absence of disease to being able to function. And that's what it's about as you get older, is being able to do the things you want to do with the people you want to do, when you want to do them, and where you want to do them. And to do that, most of the times you need to be able to function at a higher level to do that.
At the end of the day, you're going to have your own legacy. What kind of legacy do you think you want to leave behind, and what advice would you give to the next generation of advocates who are looking at the active aging field, kind of somebody who maybe want to be you or kind of help inspire the way you are?
On my gravestone, I'd just like to have them put, "He had an impact." That's it. I think a lot of times we think about these long legacies. The reality is once you're gone, your legacy generally will fade. Your impact hopefully won't. So I would like to, and I think legacy is all about impact. So he had an impact. That would be the greatest thing. Now, I am a blip compared to the big world. But if my blip can impact all of those people around it for better, that would be my legacy.
What advice would you offer to the next generation of advocates for those looking to get into this field, the field that you do?
For people getting into the field, wow. Do what you love, because, man, if you don't, it's a pain in the butt. And give it 100%. A lady the other day asked me, "How come you're always going like this?" I said, I whether it's sports, I have no idea, but I have always worked off the premise of you give it 100%. And then at the end of the day, you can look back and say, I did my best. Going into work, giving it 20%, 30%, yeah, you may feel not well. That doesn't do you any good. That doesn't do your employer any good. That doesn't do the people that you connect with any good. Just give it 100%. Do what you love, and also do something that you feel will have an impact.
Colin, appreciate it, sir.
It's a pleasure.
Pleasure. Thank you, Colin.
My pleasure.